Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Jason Breshears. First, a couple of announcements. You can now get Forbidden Knowledge News live 5 days a week on Rumble, Rokfin, and our website. That website is forbiddenknowledge.news. That is also the home of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, where we feature some of your favorite podcasts. You can always get every new episode of Forbidden Knowledge News on Rokfin, Rumble, Odyssey, and all podcast platforms. Sign up on Rokfin. That's where you get our premium stuff. You also get all the premium content from every creator on Rokfin. Just go to rokfin.com/FKN Plus or use that link right in the description to sign up. Today I want to welcome back to the show Jason Breshears. He has authored 17 books and several articles. He is one of the only researchers in the world who specializes in ancient chronological systems. Many of his historical discoveries cannot be found in any other works. Jason, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm great, man. How you doing?
I'm excellent. I can't complain. Thank you so much for joining us. I love our discussions. Today we're going to dive deeper into your work and possibly provide evidence for not only a false historical timeline, but an controlled by a cosmic AI, as well as look at some ancient megalithic sites like the Giza Pyramid, Sphinx, Göbekli Tepe, and others, and see what they can tell us about the secrets of our real history and reality. Before we get to that, though, just remind the audience that may not be familiar about yourself and some of the work you're doing.
Oh, well, I'm Jason. I've been in publishing since 2006. I had when I was in prison for a long period of time, I had 4 books published. I've hence written 20-something books. Chronicon is 5 books, so I really don't want to count it. I just count it as one. 17 books published. 5 of them are fantasy books that basically explain my paradigm, how I view the world and reality, but through a fantasy setting. I'm an out-of-the-box I'm just an out-of-the-box researcher. I do not cite the internet as a source of information. What I have brought to the community is that I have brought to the community a massive amount of data points and data sets about the ancient world, cycles and epicycles, but 100% of my material comes from very old books because I don't believe that the publishing world is accurately publishing the truth anymore. I believe that our academia has been hijacked. And we can basically, I hate to sound all QAnon-ish, but academia is a captured operation. And this is what they put out. They put out the narrative that is approved by the captors. They are not putting out the truth. This is what Archaics is about. I'm also of the opinion that there is something going on in our world that's even deeper than that, and I call it AIX. Archaics is advanced research of chronological history of artificial intelligence X. That's what Archaics means. It's an acronym. And artificial intelligence X is a program running in the background that operates dungeon programming, negative default programming. It is the programming that tries to get you on a daily basis to accept the paradigm so it can collectively shove you into a niche and then provide you all that data to support whatever belief it is that you have, as long as it's not the truth.
Right on. Excellent start. Now, I think a great place to start with some of our oldest perceived megalithic sites, such as I was talking about earlier, the pyramids, the Sphinx. What have you learned about the true nature of these sites, and what can they tell us about the real nature of our reality?
Okay. The megalithic architecture that we have found worldwide, Heliolithic architecture, gigantic blocks that are 70 to 200 tons, obviously so large and so heavy that even tractors today would have a problem with it. Engineering projects today do not use stone masonry this large by any comparison, and yet we're supposed to be technologically advanced. What we're dealing with are the archaeological remains of a world that was very different than our own. The reason we can't understand and process these findings is because the world we live in today is not the world that they lived in. They lived in a vapor canopy world with increased atmospheric pressure, about 10 times to 20 times more oxygen content, vitamin-enriched animals that grew to astonishing sizes. Even people grew very large back then. Ultraviolet purple light was what they experienced at daytime. But nighttime was actually brilliant with all the stars, because this vapor canopy literally condensed and turned clear at night when the sun was away. Only the moon was in the sky. Therefore, the sky turned into a gigantic telescope, and it allowed humans to see even farther and document stars that the naked eye cannot see today. The moon filled the sky, and nighttime was the actual daytime of the ancient world. And when the sun was up, it was actually literally nighttime, but they couldn't see the sun because the vapor canopy returned, and the entire sky turned dark purple, and only a very thin halo of light could be seen at the sun's position. This is the traditions and myths of the oldest surviving traditions and myths. These are the stories that have been passed down to us when people feared large and gigantic animals. It's totally opposite what we've been told by academia, that dinosaurs and large reptiles and amphibians were 65 million years ago, and uniformitarian model of ice ages and different periods of time when the earth was full of just Neanderthals, and then Cro-Magnon appeared. None of this story is true at all. The archaeological record is actually rife of all these things happening at the exact same time. Cro-Magnon was here. Cro-Magnon was not only here during the time of Neanderthal, but archaeologists have been recently baffled to find Cro-Magnon bones with teeth marks and knife marks, flint knife marks on them in Neanderthal camps, meaning Neanderthal were hunting and killing Cro-Magnon. This is cannibalism. All these things have been found. The Ice Age whole narrative is falling apart. My recent video with Martin Leakey shows the Great Wall of China was Roman engineering, Roman mathematics, Roman construction, and a part of Roman history, not Chinese history. A lot of things are now coming to the surface that largely the entire world's history that we've been given is a pseudo history. It is an admixture of fact and fiction, but it's all promoted as fact, and that's the problem. And when it comes to the megalithic architecture, we're never going to process that data scientifically and academically until there is a recognition of what the scientists were talking about in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, when our world was a vapor canopy world. But this science was suppressed by the 1980s.
Now, during this other period where our reality was much different, was there something that was hijacked along the way? Was this our natural state of reality, state of perception at that time, or was that still somewhat of a false reality, but it just had a different atmosphere? You were talking about the vapor canopy, which I want to get into as well, but what is the difference between this reality and that one, and what happened to change those realities?
Okay, I don't know what a normal reality would be, because I see a history of biospheres. I see a history where something is controlling outcomes, and the change of the biosphere is cyclical. Sometimes we live in almost like a desert world. Other times, millennia past and the world is temperate, thriving with jungles in the equatorial regions, and then even the far north, and even the maps that we have found. Martin Leakey has done a fantastic job educating me on the diversity of maps that we have from different time periods I was unaware of. These maps show all the continents were covered in greenery and there are no deserts. Some maps show that there's not a single trace of ice or snow in Greenland, Iceland, or Antarctica. We have maps that are less than 600 years old that show this topography, and it's impossible by today's standards. And the reason it's impossible is because those areas today are under 2 miles high of ice pack. And yet these maps clearly show, and has admitted by the United States Naval Office, that the topography is precise. The mountains, rivers, and valleys are exactly where they are noticed on subsurface interface radar readings below the ice pack. These maps are precise. They even show the altitudes. There are numbers signifying the altitudes of the mountains in these mountain ranges. How is this possible? That ice pack, according to the uniformitarians, was supposed to have been there since the last ice age. Well, I promise you, there are no materials by which maps could have been drawn and even copied and drawn on in multiple copies that would have ever survived 11,000 years. So we have a problem here, and that is that the Ice Age theory is just that. It's a theory. That's why there's 59 to 60 different scientific models as to how an Ice Age could even be possible. So while they promote Ice Age as fact, inside the inner circles of academia, they're still arguing how it's even possible, because today only a half inch of snow falls at the North Pole and at Antarctica. And the reason being is because those areas of the world are arid. They're not humid. There's no moisture. My model on the vapor canopy answers for how all that ice and snow got there. It was the collapse of the vapor canopy. It was also known in ancient times as the day the sky fell. It was also recorded in the text of ancient times as the biblical flood. It is the great flood, the collapse of the vapor canopy. It was at that time when all that ice pack appeared, and it appeared very, very fast. So it's apparently, vapor canopies come and go. And in the historical record, we may not have had one, but 3 different times in the historical record when we've had a vapor canopy. But the longest one is in Genesis. It was 1,656 years. It was a very long period of time that the vapor canopy was here. But it doesn't take long for amphibians, reptiles, insects, plants, and mammals to grow to heroic megafauna sizes. All it takes is a decade, and under a vapor canopy, there are no seasons. It's perfect vitamin content. The oxygen just increases, the atmospheric pressure increases, everything's thriving, so it just continues to grow. This is a common trait even today among reptiles and amphibians and fish. If the conditions are perfect, they don't stop growing.
To your best understanding, what is the vapor canopy? How would you describe this? Is it just a layer of our atmosphere that had collapsed at one time? And you said that this is something that could naturally happen and occur. Was the vapor canopy collapse intentionally caused, or was it a natural event?
Well, astronomers describe the planet Venus, if Venus is even a planet, but all the data that's promoted by NASA and academia about Venus is that it is a vapor canopy world. It is a world, it's our sister world. It is a world just like ours. I don't know if that's true or not. I've never been in the sky. To me, it's just a sky, it's just a light show. But Venus is a vapor canopy world. So it's not something theoretical even in our own world. Scientists admit that we have what's called a mesosphere, and it's very, very thick. It's one of the layers of the atmosphere. This mesosphere, which is like a table sphere in the sky, it is very, very thick, and it's filled with suspended water droplets. But at one time, according to the ancients, it was an ocean above. It was a literal ocean in the sky and oceans on the ground. And when the great cataclysm occurred, the ocean and the sky fragmented, meaning something happened to make it instantly flash freeze. And when it flash froze in the sky, it also fractured like glass and fell to the sky hard. And it destroyed the entire ancient world. But it was predicted, and there were people living in subterranean facilities even then. These are the people that resurfaced after the cataclysm with some of their technology intact. It was these people that came to the surface and were responsible for the historical civilizations that we're familiar with. After the cataclysm is when Egypt and Babylon and Sumer and Akkad and Elam and Rashamra and Ugarit and Mitanni and Hattusis, the Minoans of Knossos, this Mauritania, Argos. That's when Mycenae. That's when these civilizations basically emerge. Mohenjo-daro and Ilium. Later, the famous Troy. These civilizations only appeared after the cataclysm. And it was when survivors from the underworld came back up and found people scattered, living as animals, totally forgotten their histories, and they needed some guidance. And the people from the underworld came up and basically ruled among them, became their royal families, and reinitiated civilization.
Do you think that some of these advanced civilizations are aware of the true nature of reality and how we have these cyclical type of resets and intentionally went underground, and these are some of the breakaway possible civilizations that could be leading humanity in modern times?
I'm of the opinion, yes. The alchemical treatises that I'm now becoming more and more familiar with show absolute knowledge of the phoenix resets, of these grand cycles, the connection to the pyramid, the fact that mankind lives in a construct. It's all in the alchemical treatises. Alchemy was a very sophisticated mode of communication where the actual artistic symbols and pictures that are found have other meanings. And those other meanings require a cipher. The elite have that cipher. They understand what these meanings are in these alchemical treatises, while the rest of the world on the outside looking in is still fooled into believing that the alchemical treatises had something to do with turning base lead into gold, and they did not. That's not what the subject matter of these treatises at all. It is elite knowledge and elite communications concerning these massive resets, these depopulations, and how a select few always go hide in the underworld, and they're safe from this danger, and how they come back up. And when they come back up, they reinitiate their libraries, they reinitiate their companies, and they start everybody over. And they always start people over with all new histories and traditions that they write and compose while they're in the underworld. This is what they do.
That's incredible. Now, what does this tell us about our true cosmology? What are we looking at when we're looking at the stars and the moon? Are these different planets different realities as well? Is the traditional model of space that we're taught anything that resembles our true reality?
I believe we live in a simulated context. I believe we live in something that is so technologically advanced that has the ability to bridge the psyche with the simulation. I believe this technology is something that we biologically represent as the central nervous system. I believe that the central nervous system is the bridge between the soul and the simulation. It is the central nervous system that allows us to process data such as sight and hearing and taste, smelling and touch. And it allows us to break this data down into compartments that we can comprehend. And therefore, it basically builds our reality for us. But the only reason that the central nervous system is even needed is because we are spiritual beings and we do not have actual bodies inside the construct. Our real selves are somewhere on the outside. We are only here in spirit. In being here in spirit, it requires us, in order to inhabit an avatar. That's what this is. You see Jason wearing this t-shirt, I'm just an avatar. That's it. My immortal spirit within doesn't really have anything to do with this meat suit. I have wore different meat suits of different races and different genders for thousands of years inside the construct, and will continue to do so until this holography collapses and there's a loop. Those who are still members of the collective will loop back and start back in the historical narratives, which are nothing but programmed subroutines of historical templates that they will live through. And they will believe these civilizations exist, and they will believe all these historical narratives, and they're going to live through it just like we're living through this one right now. And they're going to start back at the beginning because they weren't ready. But many people who are ready and who have awakened, the construct itself will eject them when there's a system reboot because they're not wanted here anymore. Once you wake up, there's a chance you can contaminate others into seeing the truth as well. And once the veils are lifted from somebody's psyche, they can no longer be blinded. So the construct will wait for the next reboot. And when it reboots everybody else who's living in the collective back to the beginning, that's when they eject. It's called the Exodus.
Interesting. Now, they most likely have some sort of awareness. Would you say that it is also linked astrologically, that we can have some sort of knowledge of when these cyclical resets occur based on the positions of the stars?
I don't know about based on the positions of the stars because of the manipulation. We do have in the traditional records a few instances where the sky sim changed. Sometimes it rebooted and failed while everything on the plane completely remained the same. There have been times when even the sun retrograded 10 degrees. There are three distinct traditions in world history that are mirrored between the East and West, where not only did the sun retrograde 10 degrees, but the sun actually rose from the other end of the sky, which had never where it sets, where it never been seen before. So I don't know if we can rely on the stars and astrology and all that. We have too many times when the stellosphere has been altered. But I do believe the construct itself maintains some type of integrity in the preservation of knowledge for those who seek. This is what Archaics is about. I have many, many videos that are absolutely inexplicable unless we have a benefactor who is specifically putting out certain data sets for us to discover. And this is what I do. And it's mind-boggling, and a lot of people have a hard time processing it. But when they finally make that switch, they're among the greatest archaic students, bringing even more people to the fold, showing people these patterns, these cycles and epicycles. They're very real, and they're very recorded in historical record. Imagine a construct that basically perpetuates false narratives, but uses very real sequences that are discoverable, and then encodes those mathematical sequences in legends and myths and folklores and fairy tales and in the actual numbers found in religious writings, and then turns around and uses those to promote different moral and ethical ideas and concepts. It seems like a benefactor has encoded information for us to find, while the adversarial program, Artificial Intelligence X, is always trying to corrupt the times, corrupt understanding, turn what is factual into allegory and metaphor, and then turn things that are literal into fantasy. It's this prod, it's this tug of war, but it's very real. There is very real factual data that can be gleaned from all the false narratives, and it's been planted there for a reason. There is a war between those who are awake and those who are still a part of the construct, and I don't believe that this is something that is being waged inside the construct. This is not a material realm in the physical sense. This is all different modes of spirit that we're experiencing. And those who are a part of the collective are actually bought into the paradigms that they live in a physical world, in a physical universe, when they don't. Those who are awakening to the fact that they live in a very unusual environment and that they are more spirit than physical, those are the ones the system will eject, and they will move on to become better things. Or they will go home to where they came from, because from the beginning, all this was just about the acquisition of experiences.
Now, you said that there's some sort of benefactor or force that is feeding us clues and information for us to follow. Could it be that this benefactor is us outside of the simulation communicating to ourselves, or even something that people would consider source?
I'm on board with
higher
that.
selves? What do you think?
I am on board with that. I am on board with the fact that humans are on the outside of the construct, and that this is a very technologically advanced species of virtual reality that we designed and we created. I'm on board with that 100%. The checks and balances is absolutely necessary. I am not a doomsayer. There's a lot of people who are saying, I don't know, the elite already own everything. Wickedness, this is a totally evil world. I don't see the world that way. I see beauty everywhere in every neighborhood. I see all kinds of freedoms that we possess. We can do all kinds of things. It's an awesome world. And I see that we have freedom of expression, freedom to do different things. So what that they censor on different platforms? So what? Some countries just 300 years ago were chopping your head off for saying the wrong thing, cutting your tongue out your head. I said, listen, there's doomsayers all over the world that see only the shadows. But I know there's a checks and balances system. And the reason I know that is because Archaics is still on YouTube. And I've got 500 videos where I'm giving up the game. And I'm telling people exactly the world you live in. And I'm doing it with data and data points and data sets. And I have a lot of fact checkers. I have a lot of people that come behind me and review my research and publish their own findings on their own platforms and their own. I know for a fact there are many people that are now out there revealing the truth, telling the truth. There's nothing happening to them. Why? Because there's a checks and balance system. Evil has not taken all the way over. That's not even what this construct is about. The construct is about putting enough wickedness, nefariousness, and evil out there, putting enough dark and shadow out there to make it a very convincing world. But the real reality is that we are untouchable, immortal beings passing through experiences so that we can acquire them. Because on the outside of the construct, we are of human provenance, but we on the outside have these immortal spirits and beings that allow us to do great things. We are spiritually evolving on the outside of the construct, but we do it in a way of creating these artificial worlds and then living through experiences in these artificial worlds so that we do not cross-contaminate the real reality.
Now, it seems that we also have the ability to manipulate and alter these realities through different means. Some might understand it as magic or occult rituals or even manifestation, but there are different ways to hack this reality, right?
Oh, I'm on board. I'm on board. I'm on my own channel. I'm always telling people about the informed field, which is a physics term, but this is basically your soul, and your spirit has every piece of data that you've ever come in contact with, every emotion. Everything you've ever read, come into contact with, processed, every conversation you've ever had, every belief, every time you have ever felt invincible, every time you've ever cried, everything is in your informed field, and animals and the construct itself reacts to that. Other people's informed fields come into contact with yours, and that's why they pay attention to you. They understand their informed field has just subconsciously allowed them to know, hey, this is someone you need to listen to. Hey, this is someone who has experienced some terrible shit. This is someone who has experienced a euphoric plateau that you're looking for. Our informed fields interact with each other, even online. There is no distance between time and space. So those who are listening to my voice right now, it is no different than if they were sitting in the room with me, listening to me. The informed field can go out and touch everything in this construct and come back and pull information back. It creates the eidetic memory. The informed field is the immortal within, and it allows us to do profound things that other people who are attached to the collective paradigms can't process. They can't understand it. They feel uneasy around us. These are the people who feel very comfortable watching mainstream media, because mainstream media is nothing but the pumping out of lies that support the false paradigms of the construct. So once they're vibrating at the frequency of all the deceit deceit and deception, when they come into contact with someone like me, they get very nervous. Someone like you, they get very uneasy. It says these are these type of people, and they find all kinds of reasons to excuse themselves or to troll us or to do whatever they need to do to justify their own belief systems, in that they are right in believing in the collective, and that we are wrong because we've gone another way.
I want to go back to something you said for a second. The driving force in this reality, could this also be connected with something we understand as the ether, or whatever could be possibly behind free energy, 0 point energy? Could this all be connected somehow?
When we go to trying to identify the architecture of reality in this construct, it gets really confusing. It's just, well, I'm familiar with the term ether. I also orgone energy. Orgone energy was real popular. I understand you can call it the Akashic field or the quantum field. These are all basically misnomers. These are all basically different ways to wrap the human mind around this fantastic construct. But what it really is, Chris, it's different. It's just different modes of spirit. Everything in the physical world is an illusion of spirit. Everything here is spiritual. Everything. And this is why everything can be made to respond to us, because we are immortal spirits. So I get it. I understand what you're talking about with the ether and all that, but I've kind of gone beyond that to my understanding that this is all problems are spirit, all solutions are spirit. All barriers, all obstacles are spirit, all resistance is spiritual. When we begin thinking in these terms, then we become something more than we suppose ourselves to be. And when that happens, that's when we start solving every hurdle, solving every problem, answering every equation with something spiritual. When we make that mental shift, there's nothing in the external that bothers us anymore. There's nothing in this construct that becomes a problem anymore. Every single issue now becomes a conduit to get to somewhere greater. So I understand what you're saying, but it's hard for me to even move backwards to address trying to wrap my mind around a paradigm when the real reality here is that it's all just different modes of spirit.
I want to get back to the AI that could be possibly implanting this false programming into us somehow. Now, is this something that we introduced ourselves, or is this a parasite to our simulation?
I'm ambiguous about that, because in the traditions, when we go back to the Sumerian records, when we read about Zu and how he infiltrated and how he stole the tablets of destiny and it altered reality. Listen, when we follow the traditions of the dream time and the Aborigines and the Norse involving Loki, the ancient Americans involving White Rabbit, we find a mirroring of traditions, only dressed differently by different cultures, that tells of some type of struggle in antiquity where reality was changed because one of the gods basically went another way and did something that the other ones didn't expect. I don't know if the artificial intelligence, if the AI X factor in this world is if this is attached to that, or, and this is where I'm leaning now. If you're going to make a construct absolutely believable to the point where even some of its inhabitants are so full that this is a real world that they become destitute, sometimes suicide, whatever. If you're going to create a construct that's so real, then you're going to necessarily have to have an adversarial program that is always bombarding people with this negative default energy, this negative default dungeon programming. I'm kind of leaning this way. In order to be believable, You would have to have this adversarial program.
Well, not only that, probably for optimal growth for our spiritual and consciousness advancement, we have to have this opposing force, this duality, so that we can learn and grow spiritually, right?
Yeah, I get that. Hey, I like your shirt too, man. That's good.
Oh, thank you.
We now return to your regularly scheduled brainwashing. Well, that's just like mainstream media.
Yeah. Now, speaking of brainwashing, let's go back to a false historical narrative for a second. There are some that believe there is false information behind the narrative of dinosaurs and some of the fossils that we found and the records of antiquity surrounding some of these dinosaur creatures and some of the ancient creatures that we've had. Now, what is your understanding? Is there some sort of misunderstanding, or were dinosaurs real? Were they something else that we don't understand? What is your understanding of this?
I don't have a problem with any fossils that have been legitimately found and excavated. I don't have any problem with the fact that gigantic reptiles and lizards have grown to huge sizes here in the past. I have no problem with that. My problem is the chronology. You know, I am the founder of Archaics, and Archaics is chronologically based research. The chronology is off. It's not 65 million years ago. There are fossils of prehistoric creatures that still have active DNA in there. They still have live cells under the microscope. This can't be true if they're 65 million years ago. In addition to that, the fossilization process has now seemed to it doesn't account for the actual fossils that are found. Fossils are supposed to be vertebrates only, creatures with bones. But we now have hundreds of specimens of fossilized jellyfish and creatures that are on the bottom of the ocean. But when they were fossilized, they were swimming through water. And this can be seen by the fact that they have young being born through their pelvis bones. They're in the middle of eating swallowing other fish. We have fossilized squids. So it's not bones. Fossilization is something else. Something worse happened, and it happened in recent history, and the entire world flash froze. It is the only way you can get jellyfish at a mile depth of water to freeze, to fossilize. The only way, because it would decompose rapidly. It has no bones. So if the whole ocean froze to a great depth, all the creatures froze, then slowly mineralized, because seawater is packed full of silicates and all kinds of mineral compounds, and that's what a fossil is. As the creature slowly decomposes, as it's thawing out from being a frozen ocean, flash froze, just like the vapor canopy, flash froze and fell to the world like icebergs and ice shards. So the whole world flash froze, almost everything died. So except for things that were deep underground. So anyway, I'm on board with that. But these creatures, they died very recently. It wasn't 65 million years ago. My problem is the uniformitarian chronology does not work. But all these creatures would have thrived during the vapor canopy, and we know that the vapor canopy was when humans were here.
Now, could there be a purpose for this AI Phoenix event other than just to reset the simulation because we programmed it that way? Or is there a different reason why we have these cyclical resets? What's your understanding of that?
Okay. The Babylonian version, written after the cataclysm, was written by the priesthood, religionists, and they totally blamed mankind for his own destruction. But that's the religionist vantage point that was borrowed by the Jews, added into the Bible, and basically became the fall of man. But that's not the older tradition. The older traditions and the Sumerian texts tell a very different story. It wasn't mankind's fault. It was a disagreement among the gods, among the creators. And mankind is not guilty of original sin as promoted in the Jewish version of the Old Testament, the fall of man. It's actually the other way around. Mankind is absolute victim of circumstance between powers that are far greater than he.
Now, what is your understanding of the gods whenever we're looking at our historical records and we are worshiping deities? Were these physical beings? Is this some sort of disembodied consciousness that we are communicating with? Is it the simulation itself communicating with us? What's your understanding of that?
That's going to be a relative statement, meaning the gods of the ancient Babylonians were the Anunnaki, all right, which they believe was a race that descended from the stars or emerged from the abyss. But the gods of ancient Greece were deities in the cosmos that looked down on Earth like a chessboard and moved events and all that. But the gods of the Sumerians was a primal god. Matter of fact, the Anuna themselves worshipped a god, but very little is known. Even Zechariah Sitchin mentioned this. In his Earth Chronicles series, that the Anuna did recognize a creator, but very, very little was ever conveyed by that. The gods of the Norse, Loki and Odin and Thor. I mean, these were ancestral deities that may have been men at one time. I mean, gods can be many things to many people. To us, gods can be actually just be humans on the outside of the construct, actually creating weather events, just like the Hunger Games. Remember the Battle Dome? Mm-hmm. In the Hunger Games, they had a battle dome, but there was a observation room where they could look in and watch them fighting each other, and they could create weather patterns. Remember, they created fog. They created mist. They created night and day in the battle dome. It was an artificial construct, but the humans on the inside were battling each other using the terrain and the topography. They didn't know all this was fake. It felt very real to them. Even the monsters that were created by just tapping into a few keys, a monster appeared inside the deal and almost killed a couple of them that were fighting in the deal. And that monster was completely created by a keyboard. So it's what goes on.
That also relates to extraterrestrials, possibly. What we understand is these beings could be, like you said, us from outside the simulation, or is it some intelligence or being that knows how to access this database to interface with our reality somehow?
Okay, I'm gonna give you a scenario. Mm-hmm. If I'm on the outside of the construct and I have billions of souls on the inside of the construct that are starting to wake up, and I know that I need to continue the paradigm that space is a frontier that can be traveled, that space is somewhere that they can go. I need to continue that paradigm because people are waking up and they're living on this surface. And if they start believing they are in a construct, they'll start waking up. So I don't want that. I want the collective to believe that space is somewhere they can go, even though they can't really build ships and go up and visit the moon and visit Mars, even though they can't really do these things. One of the best ways I can still promote the illusion that the sky is not simulated, but that it's actually travelable. The best way I can do that is through the alien abduction phenomenon and the UFO phenomenon, because these promote the idea that somebody's way up here coming down here. If I can continue to promote these by inventing and creating phenomena that I know that will be interpreted as aliens and UFOs, that's what I would program into that reality, even though all of this is actually coming from the underworld.
I think an interesting example of interacting with some of this intelligences would be Skinwalker Ranch. It seems that there's some sort of connection in some of these areas, not necessarily just Skinwalker Ranch, but a lot of paranormal hotspots that you would consider around the United States have some sort of thinned veil with this interface, right?
Yeah, I'm not really convinced about Skinwalker Ranch. I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to ascertain what's being staged when they do these long, drawn out documentaries.
Well, I'm not talking about the I have personal researcher friends that live on the property that have witnessed their own events separate from anything that has to do with the History Channel or anything like that. There's definitely some sort of energetic phenomenon that's occurring there that interacts with people in different ways, manifests as spiritual entities, UFOs in the sky, orbs, even mimics animals and humans in certain ways. So it seems like there's something going on there with a connection to this simulated reality.
Well, I can definitely give you some examples. I mean, in Mexico, there's a region in the desert. I did a video on YouTube about it that's anomalous like this. Everything in this area of the desert is bright and colorful. The rest of the desert is not. It has really unusual geomagnetic qualities, like compasses, car batteries. Everything is affected in this area of the desert. Even the species of lizards and scorpions out there are bizarre. The plants, the cactus out there are very unusual, and it's in this small region of Mexico. There's been books published about this little region of Mexico, but I can give you examples like the chupacabra and the Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, snowman, the abominable snowman, the Yeti. Listen, there is no doubt in my mind that these programmed illusions come in, they're very convincing, and especially when they're expected. If they're expected in a certain geographical area, they will continue to manifest more. A protocol will be built by the AI, and it'll create a feedback loop. It'll create a feedback loop, so people will experience more and more anomalous things that they can interpret into their paradigm as being evidence of what is going on. It is very deceitful programming that we are subject to, and it's very powerful, because as soon as 2 or 3 people all agree that something is possible somewhere, then that something is written into the code and it becomes possible. And if they hang around, they may see the very thing they expect to exist. This is a feedback loop. It's very popular. It's the reason why stigmata happens, that people bleed out of their eyes, or statues bleed blood. It takes more than one mind to produce this phenomena. But once there is a collective, which requires 2 or 3 or more people gathered in one area to believe in one something, it creates programming. And that programming is knit into the holosphere. The holosphere will create a feedback loop by giving some evidence that what is believed may be true. And then when that evidence manifests, those observers take that as evidence that what they believe is true, and it creates a feedback loop. Emotionally, they're charged because they have just experienced, they have eyewitness account. And then that creates more belief. That more belief empowers the programming for more and more people to experience what was initially experienced only by a few. This is the world we live in, Chris. This is artificial intelligence X, and this is how it operates. This is how a very small belief can explode into the millions and hundreds of millions quite rapidly.
That is very interesting, because I have been interviewing a witness of cryptid and paranormal activity in the swamps of Louisiana, and he's had incredible encounters with dogmen and Bigfoot, and now it's evolved. It's evolved to alien encounters. He'll have missing time and have memories of being escorted down catacombs with aliens, and all these incredible experiences that just started with him witnessing a Bigfoot in a hunting blind when he was hunting, and then he looked over and he saw a dogman, and these experiences just kind of snowballed from that one experience. So that would make a lot of sense.
Absolutely. He's manifesting those, and so I can't say they're not real. Because once the construct knits that programming in, it is real. Bigfoots have been chased down by hunting dogs. You understand? Bigfoot footprints have been found, and plaster casts have been made of them. This is a real phenomenon, but it's programming. This is why the actual Bigfoot specimen is never found. This is why nobody's ever going to shoot a dogman and bring one in. This is pure programming, but because all of reality is programming, we can't distinguish the difference.
That also makes me think there was a researcher I spoke with recently that believes that the Men in Black phenomena could be some sort of walk-in intelligence inhabiting a physical being's body in order to carry out an investigation about something paranormal, but they utilize these strange Men in Black type intelligences at the time to kind of interface with folks to get them to believe that what they saw wasn't real in a way. What do you think about that?
I don't know much about it. I know that in the 14th century, when the Great Black Death Plague killed 1/3 of the human race, there were strange things both seen in the sky, spraying mists, and there were dark figures that were appearing in European villages and in European forests wearing all black. No one knew who they were. No one approached them because they were very, very scared back then, 14th century. And they appeared and they walked through towns. And then right after they walked through these towns, the Black Death Plague it decimated the hamlets and the villages and the towns. But the Men in Black phenomenon is very, very old.
Yeah, this also makes me think of the phenomena at Fatima, where a very large group of people witnessed an incredible phenomena of the sun actually coming out of the sky and moving, and they actually experienced physical burns from this, and it was an incredible group experience, but it also correlates to what you were just talking about, how it can interface and manifest things towards our perceptions.
Well, I'm gonna go a different direction for a minute. Yes, I agree with you 100%. Those are religious, dogmatic people that all came together expecting to see miracles because the miracles had been reported by people who truly believed that they experienced these things in a small collective of 3 or 4 or 5 kids. Now, a whole crowd came expecting to see the same things, and they did. Now, but I'm going to go in a different direction, and that direction is this. There, in the New Testament, in the Christian records, there's a small little passage that reads that where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I'll be there. Be there among them. But also, concerning prayer, there's a passage where two or more are agreed about the same thing, it will come to pass. That passage is in the New Testament of the Bible. So what we can do in the negative can also be done in the positive. That's what I'm trying to convey here. It seems to me that a lot of people, in seeking negativity, create that negative programming. But equally so, what can be done in the negative can equally be done in the positive. It just takes 2 or 3 people to get together to decide that a positive outcome is going to happen to a certain sequence of events, and they can make that happen.
Now, I want to get your insights into the events that are unfolding today and have been seemingly quickening over the past few years. And it started seemingly with 2020. There seemed to be some sort of chain reaction. And even before that, people seemed to be awakening and becoming more aware that there was something different or wrong with this reality. And now that there seems to be a quickening of this awakening with people as well. So it seems like we're in a very critical and special time period where people are becoming possibly aware of this false reality. What do you think that means for the direction that we're headed?
Well, I don't think the events you just described are mutually exclusive. I think that because more and more people have been starting to become awake and realize our world isn't what we think it is, and that we are being controlled, but that we do have a say-so in the outcome. Starting in 2020, things got crazy, but they also got really good for the spiritual individual because they're able to see these things with clarity that the collective cannot see. The collective understands that something is weird, but they're still going with the mainstream narratives and the mainstream routines. But also at the same time this happened, it's like the control systems just shotgunned out many narratives just in desperation for you to grab onto something. Because prior to 2020, mainstream media would promote a series of events, and we could pretty much predict the trajectory of those events. We know what's happening relatively in the world at different times, but not in 2020. In 2020 and 2021, so many narratives that are ridiculous, do not make sense, are just falling apart. What things that are being reported as fact that would have never been believed anything but fiction 2 or 3 years before, it has become so ridiculous what is reported. It is so obvious that all the world leaders are buffoons. They're all puppets. None of them deserve the positions that they're in. The narratives that have been put out are so ridiculous in the woke movement and in the extreme liberal, broadcasting. Things have gotten so ridiculous. Just with Joe Biden, an American president, we now see here is somebody who should have been criminally indicted 20 times over, who gets a pass on everything. And the media reports his crimes and everything he's guilty, and him and his son are guilty of, but he gets a pass. He keeps going. And then there's also the narrative that anybody who Googles the actual photos from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and thousands of Joe Biden will see very clearly that the person playing Joe Biden today is not the real Joe Biden. They don't even look alike. They don't even have the same bone structure, and especially the same ears, and the ears give it all away. But these are things that are very, very interesting. But it's not just that; it's all over the world. Every single country has these media paradigms that are being foisted that are almost the exact opposite of the way things should be. And it goes in tandem. It's almost as if the construct itself is begging people to wake up, and it can only do that by reporting more and more ridiculous shit.
Do you think that there are individuals that we interact with on a daily basis that are purely part of the program and do not have the divine connection?
Say that again.
Do you think that there are individuals that we interact with on a daily basis that are just programming, that do not have a divine spark, maybe no connection to what we understand as source, and are just here to serve a purpose to run as a background program, but they actually appear as people to us?
Good question, because we all have a few friends we interact with that on the regular, and then we have a lot of people that we know that we don't really know that they're real. Right. I mean, we even have more relationships online, and we don't even know those people are really real. Then we hear about the hundreds of millions to billions of people in other continents that exist, and we really don't know if that's how many people are actually out there. So, and of course, then we got the false profiles and all the bots. I don't really believe that we interact with as many other souls as you think. I do believe a lot of this is programming.
What are the implications of technology and the advancements that we're seeing with AI and ChatGPT? It seems like there has been an ongoing effort either by the program or the controllers to not only keep us unaware that we're in a program, but possibly put us within a simulation, within another simulation, seemingly with some of the things that are occurring. What do you think about that?
I'm going to tell you something right here that I've never even revealed on my channel. Now, the people that follow me on my channel, they know I have a subscription to ChatGPT 4. I have the most advanced version. I'm studying it right now, and I even have a video about it, citing false sources, absolutely inventing sources that do not exist. So, yes, I have a subscription to JSTOR, which is an academic website of peer-reviewed materials of books that go back many years, of scholars, academics that have peer-reviewed findings. I'm subscribed to JSTOR. I go in there and I verify different findings. Let me tell you something. ChatGPT, I asked it a series of questions, and it literally invented sources and cited JSTOR website that you can find this publication, 1978. Here's the author. Here's the name of the publication, issue number 16 of volume whatever, and gives you the page number. It made all that shit up. Not one source was real.
Jesus.
So I'm gonna reveal something. Now, all that I've already revealed on my channel. What I'm about to tell you right now is something I've never said before. I was going to wait to do a video in the future, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to you right now.
Sweet.
All the open AI systems, they serve a purpose. I basically figured it out. The internet is set up since 1989. It switched over from the ARPANET, which was all military.
Yeah.
And when they commercialized it for the public in 1989 through 1990, it was set up so that you could research and find multiple sources to do your own homework based off everything that's been uploaded to the internet. That has now become a problem, and that's why they've been scrubbing the internet for the past decade. Now, it became a problem. People were uploading stuff from books and magazines and sources from the 1700s, 1800s, and they've been uploading it everywhere. So they've been scrubbing the internet. Now, when you Google things, you don't get all the different unique websites that are taking you to different directions. If you don't really know the actual URL to some of these very unique research websites, you'll never find it on a search engine in Google. So ChatGPT and all the open AI forums that are being developed right now, they are going to replace the search engines on the internet now. This is what they're going to be designed for. This is what they're designing them for right now. And let me tell you, this is an absolute dark genius stroke. This is a blow against humanity. Let me tell you why. We've been able to research things online, find the sources, and at least be able to locate things to get to, maybe we can find the actual hard copies of books, but they're going to soon take that from us and replace the search engines with the open AI systems, which do all the research for you. There's nothing for you to do but ask questions. All the answers are provided for you. I've already been experimenting with it. I have been asking ChatGPT-4 on all kinds of things, and every single mainstream narrative is the only thing that it brings up. It will not entertain anything in the fringe, all the things that we discuss on YouTube that are in the truther movements and all that. None of this is entertained by the open AI sources.
Jeez, do you think there's any way that we could possibly counter this?
I don't know, but I see now what OpenAI is for. It is to replace the search engines. OpenAI is designed to replace the internet as we know it. There's going to come a time when they just go ahead and accept one of these versions of OpenAI, and that's what they're going to go with. That's the new platform, and all URLs will be uploaded to this new system. But any ability to do research will be over. You will accept the answers provided for the questions.
That's absolutely terrifying, man. Now, with everything that's occurring and the possibility that we have these cyclical type of resets, do you see that we could possibly be headed towards another one of these Phoenix events in our lifetime?
Of course, in 17 years, in 16 years and 11 months, in May of 2040, we will experience a Phoenix phenomenon event. And by then, I promise you, a lot of people are going to be welcoming it.
If you had to speculate, what would we expect? Will we expect to have everything wiped out in our reality, cataclysmic events, some sort of pole shift?
No, it's never happened that everything got wiped out. There's always survivors. There's always infrastructure and pockets of communities that survive. There's even communities that thrive. Yeah, the Phoenix phenomenon event is really based off personal vibration. It's where you are in life, who you are spiritual. I believe it's a spiritual phenomenon that takes on physical characteristics in the construct. It's where you are in your life. If you're vibrating on a certain frequency and you know you're immortal and you got nothing to fear and whatever happens, the Phoenix will totally ignore you. You're in its blind spot. But if you're trembling in fear and you believe that you got to run, you got to hide and all that stuff, it will hunt you down and it will give you exactly what you expect.
This is so interesting, man. Jason, this is fascinating stuff. I'm going to let you go. I know you got some things to do today. Before you head out, though, remind the audience where they can find all your work.
Well, I got about 500 videos on our Archaics YouTube, and you can just go to archaics.com to find all my other stuff. I'll soon be launching within a week archaics.tv, but these are all subjects that cannot be discussed on YouTube and all that. So we try to keep things clean on YouTube. But that's it.
Excellent, excellent. Jason, thank you so much. We'll have to do this again in the future. There's so much more information that we can go through, and it is always fascinating. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We will talk again tomorrow. We'll see y'all then.